Hello everyone, this is Nick Lawson with cdc-takecharge services. It's Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend. And we're presenting lesson 4 on how to build a more robust and user-friendly contact management application. As we mentioned in lesson 3, today we will be discussing creating your own tab form using conditional objects and a few buttons, and the contrast between that method and using the standard built-in tab form provided by Alpha Software. First, let's look at the original form the way it was intended through Alpha Software. We'll bring it up and we're going to look at the People Information tab or form. Here you go. In the bottom center of the screen you have your tab form. Two tabs on the left side of the form, and they are contact history and contact method. By default it comes up on history, and then if you click on method it lists some additional field objects that you can view and edit and maintain. Go back to history and it brings up a browse of your activities as far as contacts and memos go. Pretty simple. Now let's look at the changes that we made in our contact management. Again, we're going to bring up people info. Now notice I changed the background colors. These are blue is a nice soft color. I like it. It's user friendly, easy on the eyes, and it provides good contrast for our tabbed form. Here, when it comes up, you'll notice a couple things different. Again, I have the form. I have two buttons and I have a text field that I've added. Now, as default, when it comes up, it's on contact history. When you click on contact method, the browse goes away. You have your additional field objects that you can manage and edit just like any other one. And your text box now displays different information. The difference between the two is that in this method, if you had multiple tabs, then you can create one text box, and as the buttons are clicked, pass variable text to that text box rather than having to create it over and over again on each layer of your tab form. Pretty simple there, and certainly it makes writing the code a lot easier. Now let's take a look at how that code is written in contrast for each of them. So first let's take and get to our control panel. So I hit my hotspot and I bring it up. We want to do the same thing over here on our original application. Okay, now on the original form, people, we go to design. Here's our tab form. Now if you haven't looked at a tab form before, it's pretty easy to use. It comes up, it allows you to name the object. By default the name works fine, but you can change it to any name that you want. I just recommend that if you're going to change the name of objects, do it before you start writing code being called by that object, or you'll have to go through and make sure your code reference does not get hosed up because you changed the name. You take and tell it where you want the tab placement, whether you want the corners to be rounded, square, or angled, and whether it's printable and it's a tab stop, and so forth and so on. You can also set the background to transparent. You can bold the label. On the tabs themselves, you get to name the tabs and set the order that they display. Select the color for the selected, the unselected, and the page color. Now you'll notice here on theirs, they left the color the same on all of them, pretty plain. I'm sure they did that just because they're trying to show you the simplest way to do it. But you could actually change the colors to be anything that you want to be. Then they set the font, and that's pretty much it. Now, they have no events on this tab form. The two are not bolded, so that means no code was written, and you can only do two things: can tab change and on tab change. Alright, now let's go ahead and close that, and we're going to go ahead and look at ours. Change the name of the form so that as we go through the lessons and I can contrast, you can see both of them how they're done. Okay, here, now we've added several things as I said. It's pretty easy to see we have two buttons on here, but we also have a frame. Alright, so it's frame number 1, the text box, text 2, the conditional object, condition 1, and that's pretty much it. We have some variables in here that we'll also discuss as we go through it. So now, on initiate of the form, we tell it which tab we want to display first. So we put that code here. We set xtab to equal contact history. And xtab is controlling our conditional object. So once we set that, it displays the right screen. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Then we do some button edge properties changes in order to take and make it look like the tab either has focus or doesn't have focus. We set the colors for the tab for the same reason. The tab that has focus is going to be off-white, and the background tab will be gray 2.5. Here we set the text for our text box. These variables down here are being set for something that we'll be doing down the road, and we'll explain that in the future. Pretty much that's the on initiate. The same thing occurs when we take and set the values on the buttons. Here, if it's contact history, I set the edge to be false because we want it to look like it's part of the page. And the other one is set to true. If I go to contact methods, the opposite happens. I set the edge to true, and I set the next button to false, and I switch the colors. Change the text on the tab. So now by using buttons to execute the code, I can do anything that I want in the way of setting variables, object properties, data formats, lookup tables, anything that I need to do to take and make that information unique for the particular tab I'm trying to display can be done right here within the on push event of the button. Gives you a tremendous control over all the objects on the screen and the data that you're displaying. So pretty much that's all that you have to do to make it work. I do want to take and show you the conditional object for those people that have not actually looked at this process. The conditional object is basically, if you went back to DOS days, would be a virtual page. You're able to take and fill that information out on the page in the background and then display it as a solid unit so that it, as magic, it just appears and disappears depending on how you call your conditional object. When you first put an object, which is over here on your toolbox, it's down here towards the bottom, let's go to it. There it is right there. When you put it on the screen, it comes over with default and properties and events. We're going to go ahead and take and, if you're adding more pages to it, you go to default, you go to properties, and you take and set your condition expression. So xtab is what we're setting. If you look over here on the code, xtab equals contact method on that particular button. So contact history is the first button and contact method is the second button. And you can give it a label to help keep your information organized. That's it. That's all you have to do, and then you call out a refresh of that object in order to take and change the page, which we do here as this right after we set the xtab, which is the variable name. Now xtab is set is on the initiate of the form so that it's always available when the form is open. That's it. That's all you have to do in order to make that method work. So we're going to say no, and we're going to close our code page and exit on out of here. So pretty much that's all we're going to do today. Thanks a lot, and I hope you guys like this lesson, and we'll see you for the next lesson. Thanks a lot and have a great day.